What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. This is the podcast where you can hear the real stories behind the people on social media. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly, and today we're joined by Tara Porter. Tara is a yoga instructor, and she runs the social media accounts for Pure Kitchen, which is a popular vegetarian and vegan scratch kitchen here in Canada's nation's capital, Ottawa. And I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today, Tara. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. So where I want to go all the way back.
Okay.
So you grew up on the East Coast, right?
I'm a maritimer, displaced.
If I'm correct, so you were born in Newfoundland but grew up in Halifax?
Born in Newfoundland, grew up mostly in Truro, Nova Scotia,
Okay.
so 45 out from Halifax.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the hub.
Yeah. So what was your childhood like growing up? Like, was yoga part of your childhood, or kind of when did you get into yoga?
Yes and no. So my father was an RCMP, and so we were stationed around in the Maritimes in Newfoundland and Labrador. And then my mother went back to school when we left my father. And so we were in Truro. Mm-hmm. And lots of childhood events sort of led to some need for some family bonding. So my mom found this yoga class in the basement of a community college.
Yeah.
And so we took it as a family bonding experience. But I was doing dance and music at the time, and so it was very complimentary, and it was another way to move, so I really connected with it, but I didn't really understand the workings of like the breath work or philosophy. I was like, oh cool, this is a cool way to move, it feels good. But was introduced to a lot of different alternative holistic natural health ways of being or thinking. So it wasn't until after high school that I fell madly in love with yoga, but it was always there for me. Like my older sister ran with it and became a yoga instructor. So she's largely who influenced me to move to Ottawa and also helped me find the yoga community too. Yeah.
That's awesome. And with people, whenever I interview brand managers on the podcast, the social media accounts, I always ask them about school and whether their school's worth it, but you didn't go to school, if I'm correct,
I
right?
didn't. No.
So what led to that decision?
It's funny because I am someone who actually thrives in an educational setting. I was a 90 student. I was valedictorian. I, had these scholarships if I went into school, but I was hung out with older people. Mm-hmm. And at the time, knowing that the university or college costs would be coming out of my direct bank account, I was watching them change their degrees or graduating and not necessarily going into their field. Mm-hmm. And employment in Nova Scotia is a little bit different than in Ontario as well in terms of rates. And this was like 13 years ago, 2005. So is that right now? It's too early. And so I did this volunteer program after I did Katimavik after high school. And it led me from thinking that I was going to go into art or drama therapy after taking a gap year to realizing, okay, I love business and it still can be creative and it still can be something that also holds me accountable. So I landed this job. I've managed so many small businesses in the past 12 years that it's been a living university in many ways. Where any small business you wear 5,000 hats in 1 hour sometimes. And so lots of continuing education and courses, but I have no letters beside my name.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, looking back then, like, do you wish you had gone to school, or are you like totally stoked with how the way things turned out? I
would not be opposed to going back to school or taking a course or credit. I love learning. Mm-hmm. So about every year I get an itch, so I will register for some sort of course or workshop that's in alignment with what I'm taking, or especially with the access of free education online now, which is in a totally, like there's just a massive information and accessibility out there. So it's easy to tap into that. It's easy to think that you're also self-directed and then realize like, okay, I have to manage this in the same way. So it does warrant, I think, that discipline when you are self-studied and learning on the side. But I love where my trajectory has landed me.
Yeah.
And I love the applicability of everything that I've done. And I've loved every small business. It has to be in alignment with my values.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's partly why it's been so great to work with small businesses for so many years, because it is so rewarding and multifaceted. Like you have to learn many things.
Yeah.
Do or die. Yeah.
And so with like online, there's so many free resources and so many ways to learn online.
Yeah.
And when you take a course online, it's very specific.
Yes.
Like if you're paying for one, it's exactly what you want to learn.
Exactly.
What advice do you give to people that are just graduating high school now? Like, do you recommend they go to school, or do you kind of recommend they figure it out maybe for a year or two, take some online courses and see how that goes? Like, what is your advice when you're speaking to someone that's about to graduate?
I think it's really dependent. I felt pulled in two different directions. There was this sort of like therapeutic side, and then there was this art side of me. I knew where I could combine both, but I also wanted some living experience and also work and saving experience. So for me, even though I love school settings, I wanted just to take a year. And I think that there can be an expectation to do something. It gives life skills, whether or not they use their degree or not. If you think about it, gets you out of your comfort zone. And I think that that's really where growing and the magic happens, just to be as cliche as possible. So whether getting out of your comfort zone is going to school and then figuring it out, or whether getting out of your comfort zone is taking a year and trying something new and then getting clarity from that, I think it really needs to be a personal experience. Mm-hmm. I'll probably be like a 40-year-old in some university class, like just sitting with the youngsters one day. Yeah. And I also think that learning never stops. So however you look for education, if you're like not clear, then have the discipline to try multiple different things to get clearer, or that self-growth or self-awareness to get clearer. And if you have clarity of the direction you want to go, then run with it. Yeah. Go to school. Do the work. Yeah.
And so you said it was your sister that ultimately convinced you to move to Ottawa? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did she do that? And like, what did you do when you first got here?
So I would visit her on my March breaks or like summer breaks. So I had familiarity with Ottawa and some of her communities. So I felt welcome and I felt comfortable in the city. And after I finished Katimavik, she's like, oh, well, the yoga studio is always hiring receptionists. So I ended up managing the reception immediately. And I wanted to be close to, my niece was like 4 or 5 at the time. She just graduated high school, which is really weird for me. And yeah, so I wanted to be closer to family, which during the latter part of my youth, I didn't have that time to spend. There's like a 6 and 4 year gap. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to come. She hooked me up. And then 12 years later, I'm still here. Yeah. I was like, I'll be here for 1 year. Nope.
No.
Not at all.
And so were you scared at all moving here, kind of moving to like a big city from Truro, or was it like having your sister here, did that kind of calm you a little bit?
That buffered it for sure. And also having some friends, like through her friends, even though I was, it's Amanda's little sister. I moved here on a Greyhound bus.
Really?
Wait, like done a road trip with friends earlier on in the summer. So I think that was maybe the scariest part. Like, oh shit, I have to carry all this stuff. Am I allowed to swear?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The Maritime were coming out at me. I get excited about new things. Like, yes, I think as I get older, I have more fear making big changes. But I don't think I had any fear. I was excited. I think in Nova Scotia, I was part of this board in Truro that worked with the province and talking about unemployment and the fact that a lot of youth, and there's several like Halifax is one of the youngest cities in Canada because of how many educational institutions are in this smaller, cute little, I love Halifax, city that it is. But what happens is that everyone will go away. Not everyone. Like, there's a lot of folk who stay there. So at that time, they were trying to find ways and insights from youth and people who would soon be leaving, to be like, what would draw you back? What do we need to keep a younger generation? So the province isn't just full of boomers with not enough workers to, support that aspect of the economy. So at that time, I was one of those Maritimers who was like, get me out of here. I want more culture. And I got it, which is nice. But I remember moving to Ottawa with that maritime friendliness and coming to a city and being like, well, people don't say hi to each other on the sidewalk, or weird. It's weird to smile at someone. So there was a little bit of a difference moving to a city, but I felt at home here, and I always have, which is nice that it's my real home now. But Nova Scotia's just in my DNA in the Maritimes. So it's my soul home. Yeah.
And so when you started at that yoga studio as the receptionist, then I guess did you kind of transition from there up to being an instructor at that studio?
Yes, and I managed that studio. And I started taking trainings. I would go to the States. There's a couple institutions that are like universities of yoga, essentially. Okay. Kripalu in Massachusetts and Omega in Rhinebeck, New York. And I spent a lot of time there. And then when I started managing the studio, I had an allowance for educations. And I was also booking international teachers and local teachers for workshops and trainings. So I was very spoiled and lucky to be able to just gather all sorts of information and put that in my back pocket. Very, very lucky. Yeah. I look back at that now and I'm like, oh man, that was... Now as a yoga teacher, it's like you take continuous education for a multitude of reasons. You start with a base training, so that continued education is really necessary if it's something that for inspiration and for fresh perspectives, but also because our awareness of anatomy, our neurology, and mindfulness is still evolving. So it's expensive though. It's hard to make a living as a yoga teacher. Yeah. So it's nice to do it for the love of it, not for the need of it anymore.
And so when did Pure Yoga and then Pure Kitchen kind of come into the picture for you?
So Pure Yoga, I took a little break from Ottawa. I lived with my partner at the time in Hamilton for a couple of years because that's where he was based out of. And during that time, when I first left, I was ready for a change. I knew that I wanted to switch careers. I didn't have a full, clear picture, but I knew that it had to involve artistry, community, and wellness. And so when I came back from contacts like knew Amber and Jen and Dave and Kyle and Olivia, the owners of Pure Kitchen, and I ran into them after a yoga class and they're like, oh, we're opening this. And I was like, wait, it's really similar to the business plan that I've been building in my head. Like, I'm planning on moving back. I'd love to consider hiring me. Mm-hmm. And so they did. And when I came back, I wasn't teaching. I think I was teaching one class. So I started subbing until a class presented itself at Pure, which was great. I love my Sunday night crew. I love them. It's the best end to my week and start to my week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you first came on board with Pure Kitchen, then it hadn't even opened yet.
Yeah.
So you were there for the whole process leading up to the opening?
Yeah, I was co-facilitating a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. Came back a day later, moved to Ottawa. the next day I had my interview and then started working like a week after that. So I joined them 2 weeks after they opened.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I missed the first 2 weeks.
The first 2 weeks? Okay. So what was your like role initially then when you started?
Server.
Okay.
They knew that they wanted to have me be a manager. So I was serving, and then a month later I started managing. When we were getting ready to open up Elgin, one of the owners then passed the accounts payable and payroll onto me, and then I took on social media at that point, and took on catering and managing. It was a lot. And then when we opened up Elgin, it was like, okay, I trained someone else on accounts, kept going with catering and social media and managing, and then eventually passed catering off. And in the past year, my new role is, originally it was social media and community outreach, but now it's all marketing and community outreach. And they really work together, which is great. So, and it's amazing. It takes a special sort of crazy to do what we do in the food industry. And there's something about opening the restaurants, which is like ridiculous, but also so fun and so satisfying too. So I love training, I love teaching. So it's nice to have that.
And I do want to get into the social media side, but before that, I want to ask what it was like to meet Justin Trudeau at the 1-year anniversary of the kitchen.
Yes. And again, this summer, we actually cooked at his garden party again. He's very svelte. It's interesting to watch leaders when they, like, part of their job is schmoozing. He's good at it.
Yeah.
You can tell that it is a necessity, and he's very gracious and patient and consistent and unwavering in those social settings. And his wife comes into the restaurant every now and again as well. So it was really an honor to be there. And again, this past summer being invited again. It's the garden party. Yeah, very gracious and very supportive. But it's also interesting to be that person hanging back, watching.
And observing everything.
Observing. It's like a reality TV show that's not on Netflix. That's in front of your eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was just curious. I saw that photo somewhere, maybe like deep in the Instagram or something like that.
Deep in the depths.
Yeah.
You did your homework.
I did. I tried to. But speaking of the Instagram then, so you said you took that on shortly after you started doing the management stuff at Pure Kitchen?
It was in that first year.
Yeah.
If I went back onto the Instagram page, and it's so interesting to go back and like see the evolution of it and the quality of the photos and the quality of the captions, and beginning it just being like, okay, we need something.
Yeah.
And then we're realizing, oh, this is really effective for our business. And then leaning on resources to give guidance. So we've had different marketing consultants in the past, and I actually work with Elisa every now and again. We'll check in because she runs the Charlotte account. And then we brainstorm collectively about once a month with one of the owners who really has a personal love and connection to social and is great at marketing. He's got a poli-sci background, so he loves that aspect of connecting and knowing who's who. So yeah.
So prior to Pure Kitchen then, did you have any social media experience? Did you ever run accounts before? Just
for myself. That's the joy of being an independent contractor, is that I could just show up and teach, but no one's going to know about my workshops other than the people who are there. And there are plenty of people who want to know or just need reasons or education of why they should go. So just personal. I did for some other small businesses, but it was before Instagram really sort of shone. Yeah. It was more Facebook and email communications and MailChimp, and that was always, and actually creating that side of communications was always something that I always did. So knowing how to verbiage was there, familiarity with graphics and what imagery and what colors work or what fonts down. Like I consider myself an artist. And so I have an idea of an aesthetic that I want to abide by, but yeah.
So then in the beginning, when you took over Pure Kitchen Social, did you have a strategy in place that time, like kind of based off your previous experience at all, or just kind of...
I don't think we had any strategies at that time. It was such a crazy time looking back at it. It was very reactionary. I'd say only in the past 2 years have we really been able to strategize and leverage it in a different way, which was out of necessity, out of efficiency, but also what's amazing about my role, and one thing that I really enjoy, is that for a business, it also identifies gaps. So, one of the challenges would I post about something and then realize in the notes, reading them, like, okay, they don't have any of those ingredients, but they should have. Like, there's a gap there in communication. So let's tighten that up before I start promoting that on a Monday. So I'll promote it on a Tuesday so you guys can get those things together and we work out these kinks however long. Or, okay, this is actually something that we're consistently 86'd, which is a term that means it's run out, it's out of stock. It's identified a lot of gaps, actually. So it also helps refine our processes within a company that has grown, and where there need to be, where we strive to have consistencies, but that comes from many different access points. So it actually presents a lot of insights, not just for what people want to see or want more of, but where we're lacking on our side too.
Interesting.
Which is great.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier how you would take these online courses and stuff. So is there any specific ones that you took for social that you'd recommend, or any interesting things you learned online, like doing research for social?
Yes. So I actually took a minimalist baker food photography course, which was really amazing. I love that. I receive weekly emails from Leader and Sprout Social. They actually send consistent articles or insights, which are helpful. Like, sometimes there are some weeks I'm like, okay, I'll read that later, and I just tuck it into my social strategies folder, and which is great. That's just like 2 easy examples that come to you with relevant information from industry leaders, and the changing algorithms, or what the trends are and what apps to create more efficiency. So I've taken a couple webinars with those. There's Jasmine Star as well. And then a couple other things that are maybe not directly social media, but more marketing related. So that sometimes Ottawa Tourism is provided, or culinary tourism, and in that way.
Yeah, interesting. So I want to kind of get into Instagram specifically for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's sitting at like 26,500 followers right now.
We're almost at 27.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like, what are some strategies that you used to grow that account to that size?
So when I took it on, it was at about 1,500 or 1,600 followers. Most of all of it is organic growth. We've never used bots. We've never been really aggressive. And part of that is like prioritization. It's like, do I spend 15 minutes doing follow for follow, that sort of in the beginning, when the needs of the business are here right now. It's like, okay, I need to get communication out now. And so we really didn't do a lot in the beginning. I refresh my hashtag list every now and again. I'd say every 2 months, but using relevant hashtags per post. So that there are some that I can see, okay, this is from these hashtags that we're getting. Part of the growth has also been partnerships with other businesses. And really, we have been... I'd say the majority of that growth has also just been people coming to the city, because vegan, vegetarian restaurants, when you travel, you want to eat healthy, which is hard. But when you travel with a plant-based diet, you're immediately searching. So a good chunk of our Elgin business has been tourism related. We get a lot more folk. So you'll see people posting and then following, and then their friends follow. And it's the vegan vegetarian community is always excited to support other plant-based food providers, and also for inspiration. So other businesses, giveaways, that sort of thing, them sharing. And that's where the community outreach part of it as well. So being present in certain community activations and donating has also allowed for education about our business or new locations. And then there is following hashtags and then following new businesses. A lot of the people post their food. So then I'm also following back. And then they're sharing their post, and then that leads to, like, we have so many people who are just taking us in a million stories every day, which is so amazing. And we're so grateful for that because they don't need to.
Yeah.
And they do. And they're excited about our food. So I think I have one of the best positions where I'm reminded a lot of, like, day in and day out, how many people are grateful for a product, which then also influences me to want to keep creating content that is hopefully inspiring.
Yeah. And so with people taking photos and sharing their food all the time, which is awesome, because what's cool with like a restaurant is people want to show off that experience. Like you're just getting free promotion for everyone that walks through the door.
Yeah.
Do you ever use and leverage any of that content, use user generated content in your feed, or do you kind of curate it all yourself and like shoot all that content internally?
Once they made that accessible with like being able to add this to your story, yes, absolutely. Every now and again we would repost. When we got clear on more of our aesthetic that we were hoping to convey through our posts, that means that sometimes it sounds awful, but I feel like a brand protector.
Yeah, of course.
I am a brand protector. So that means I'm also considering aesthetic and look and what's there too. So I don't share everything, but I love to share as frequently as possible. Yeah.
And so how did you develop that brand aesthetic then online? Because what's also interesting with restaurants, because I follow Gary Vee a lot.
Okay.
And he always says like your grid doesn't matter, like just post. But with a restaurant, you're trying to convey the experience from the restaurant in a digital sense, which you do so on the grid. So how did you kind of mold and craft that look and feel?
Part of it is a built-in color scheme from both the interior design, but the ingredients of the food. So identifying, okay, we have lots of wood, we have lots of white paint, we have then this splash of color with bright colors, we have a lot of earth elements and plants. So there's that aspect of it. So I love mimicking that brightness when possible in photography. But then the food itself, there's a lot of the browns, like the woods. There's a lot of then the whites, if it's a burger bun or a wrap. And then there's bright pops of color. So with that, they thankfully really mesh easily together. And it'd be different if we didn't have cold pressed organic juices. There would maybe not as much color. You'd have maybe some colorful beers or some nice wines. So our product and the quality of the product makes it very easy for me to leverage the phytonutrients that are accessible in that color palette from the food that we're using. So interior design, actual ingredients of what I'm trying to convey, helps with the grid. And then there was this component of, I think our people are also our biggest ambassadors, which is both people coming in, but our staff. Like, they're beautiful, talented people who, most of them, this is their launch pad for some folk. where they have these other beautiful skills on the side. So they're talented, they're beautiful, they're amazing. We're like family. And so it's like, okay, well, let's convey that. So there's more like actual body parts in the pictures, like hands or torsos or like action shots. Like it's a hustling, bustling space during key moments of service. So how can we also convey that a little bit?
Yeah.
I think aesthetic is important where it's different being a restaurant versus a retail store. We are selling the food. We're selling certain services. We have catering and we have juice cleanses. But we're here for the food, which, I've been there for 5 years. I'm still not sick of our kale Caesar salad, which is amazing. And I'm not a creature of food habits. So it's being able to sell a food product, it needs to primarily be about that, which has me cognizant about when I'm sharing other things about events or other posts. Like, I'm going to lose people if that's what it starts to become, versus if it's a product, then you can have a different sort of sense of link, which can then lead to different sales. So, and because, yes, there are people who are following us from all over the world, but maybe they're not coming to Ottawa till next year. So we have a large following of people, some of which have either dined in or would like to maybe at some point in their future, some of which are looking for it for inspiration if they're in another part of the world that work also in the food industry. But I'd say a third of our followers are really who we're speaking to in the city, who are like, okay, you want this? You do want this? You do? I think you do. Come on in. But we definitely notice a difference of those people coming in for features or because they saw this on Instagram. Like the amount of times I have servers being like, oh yeah, someone showed me this on Instagram, or so we're speaking to those people, which is come in for an experience or let us cook for you in that way.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you why it was all food centric pretty much for the most part, your feed. There's not many shots of like the restaurant without food. There's always elements of food or a beverage of some kind.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was curious as to why that was. That's cool.
Yeah. We can, and like I'm sharing a couple pictures of the space. When I'm sharing about the space, it's like this location is closed because we have this going on. Or we have images of the space with our Ottawa Tourism account or Ottawa Venues account, because those are people maybe interested in having their party there or a buyout or something. So whereas Charlotte, you do want to see the space. You want to know what sort of environment and atmosphere you're going into. So I don't share the location as much, but when we do, it's normally to convey some sort of information about that location proper, or if I'm looking for insights from or engagement from the community, like polls or questions like, why do you live? Which location is your favorite? In that way. Yeah.
What about video? I noticed too that it's primarily, I would say 95% of the feed is photos. So you guys don't do many videos. I was just curious if there's a reason behind that, or if just because of the way the aesthetic of the page works, photos better. Like I was just curious as to why.
That's a great question. We do have videos that tend to be, right now I'm building more IGTV content videos that are recipes.
Okay.
So food inspiration. The inspiration is using one of our sauces or products within it. But also, if someone is watching this it hopefully then gets them creatively thinking about food. So it's like, I want to be able to give content. Yes, I need to sell a product, but I also want it to be authentic and educational marketing, and genuine. Like we could just have a video about come into our space and buy our product. But what if we have a video that is educational and inspirational? We want to create a community that is loyal and inspired, and that is a continuum in that way. So we all evolve and grow. So let's create also resources that allow for that organic evolution as we continue to hold space for our community in the same way that they support us. So cooking videos is a big one. A lot of students actually will offer to come and do videos for us. So we'll share them every now and again. And at the beginning of the year, we've been talking about a video project, and I've chatted with a couple video creators in the city, videographers, and but we've needed to prioritize sort of in a different way. So videos that we have are more time lapses every now and again. So they're there on the stories and then they'll disappear. And then some of the content, when I'm creating a video, I want it to be recyclable so that it's something that I can use on IGTV. It's something I can incorporate into MailChimp. It's something that maybe eventually we can have on our website, because my time throughout the week is not dedicated strictly to social media. So it's constantly a balance of leveraging what priority is there that week. And although I'm a much more efficient video editor, it takes more time. So it's like if I have X amount of hours a week that I'm dedicating to social content engagement, and the other half is dedicated to my inbox, and actual floor restaurant needs. That's the main reason why. It's like if I'm editing them, it's a little bit more time consuming. So I have to. The recipes is something that will keep coming. Yeah, or educational videos like Elisa and I've done that are silly. Do you know about this? How about this one? That way.
And I think the cool thing too, like with those educational videos, are the recipes, as opposed to a video of like come into the space and like eat here.
Yeah,
you're not necessarily selling to the consumer, but you're teaching them something, or they're trying the recipe that you're showing. So the Pure Kitchen brand is staying top of mind, but you're not necessarily selling to them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's just a way to keep them engaged with you as a brand. And when they are hungry, I just made that Pure Kitchen recipe, I should go to Pure Kitchen.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily a direct sale. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah.
That's such a good way to go about it.
It's not aggressive. I don't think we are aggressive as a whole. And I feel really grateful that they see the value in, creating content that allows for everyone to evolve. And then that person has the choice. It's like anytime that I see marketing where it's like, you want this, it's like, you're not the boss of me. Like, and I'll just swipe to the next thing versus, do you know about this? And I'm like, ooh, I don't. Tell me everything.
Yeah.
Now you have way more time on your algorithm chart for me, and I'm going down this wormhole. So that's, in a nutshell, the essence of why I want to create content is like, can this lead to an organic relationship that will be continuous versus just waves in and out? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, so are you making all the content yourself then? So you're taking the photo and the video and editing everything?
Most of it.
Okay.
Yeah, most of it. I do have, what are those called? Albums.
Okay.
From photographers of the past. Most of which I just hired some new graphic designers. And so we're going through content as we're identifying, okay, like let's swap up our website. Here's some images you can use for these sort of projects. And going through them, I'm like, holy crap, we have so many photos from beautiful photographers in the city of the past. But our menu would change 2 to 3 times a year. So half of that content is no longer valid.
Yeah.
And so that's where now it's the majority of my photos, but I would say 25% is like recycled photos from photo shoots in the past, so that I have that bulk. And then in the new year, I'll hire another photographer and have a beautiful new album to sort of lean on on those days that I'm working remotely or can't take a picture of that specific thing at that location. So Yeah.
And so what do you just use your phone, or do you have a camera to take the photos?
Good old iPhone.
Really, eh?
8 Plus. It's got a good camera.
Yeah. I always ask people that because I feel like people think they need like the newest and best camera to like make nice photos, but you're managing an account with a very nice aesthetic from a phone.
Yeah.
All the content's from a phone.
Yeah, from a phone. The camera comes out when we're taking images of space or certain things that I need the quality to be really good if it's going to be on a big piece of paper, or in print or on something that way. So definitely that's where I dive into the photography. Outdated almost.
Yeah.
It's crazy how going through that. I was just last week, I was like, oh my gosh, I need new photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all on just my Dropbox or on my phone. Yeah.
And you mentioned you lean on those photos when you can't be in the restaurant, like physically, or whether you're working remotely.
Yeah, and I also want to minimize food waste. Like, yes, I can eat it. Yes, and other staff will eat it. And we actually just partnered with an organization called Food Rescue that diverts our waste to organizations in the city that need it, which I'm super stoked about. That's a total side note. But that's also another cost to the business. So it's like I'd rather have that money spent on a photographer rather than just taking a new photo all the time. And also because that's time consuming. I don't have that time. I need to think about my work week in an efficient way. So if I am taking a product photo, I'm going to take a product photo for that day, but then I'm also going to take several other story-based images, and I'm going to take several other aspects of it so that I can use that in a month or in 2 months. So it's not just a one-time use photo.
Yeah. And so how many times are you uploading a week then to Instagram? Like, what's your upload schedule look like?
So 6 days a week on stories. Sundays are my radio silence mental health day. And feed 4 to 5 times a week. Yeah.
I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper on that Sunday idea.
Yeah.
The radio silence mental health day. That's interesting. 'Cause I feel like with social media, I feel like personally, I always need to be plugged in with the accounts that I manage. Like people are always messaging, people are mentioning us. Yeah. So talk to me about that. Like, do you feel like you're missing anything when you're offline for that Sunday, or?
No.
No?
And because the reality is it can wait one day.
Interesting.
It can wait one day. And when I'm in on Mondays, sure, sometimes I miss the image that was mentioned in a story maybe later on Saturday night, so I didn't get to see it because it's Monday morning. I'll still give them a heart. I'll still thank you. And I'm like, as long as that wasn't a bad review, which hasn't, that's another story. So, yeah, it's one day. And I think it's also important to be present. Like, there can be follow-up if it was something that came in about quality service or a product. Often they're not posting it to their story, and that's what disappears. Then they're sending me an image if that's something that's happening, so I can still see that and I can still follow up with it.
Yeah.
But I think that most people are very understanding if it's 24 hours later, or if they have a really pressing thing, pick up the phone, call, email info@purekitchenottawa.com. It's maybe not the best channel to communicate those. I still will get those things sometimes because we're humans. But yeah, I'd say the majority of the time it's like, is that the best channel? So, but that being said, why we also choose Sunday is it's one of our quieter engagement days, truthfully. So Friday and Saturdays are more so. It's like if we're going to have one day that we're not on, then okay, let's choose Sunday.
Okay. And was that something you've done from the beginning, or did that after you meant doing 7 days a week for a while and then you kind of hit your point?
I did 7 days for a while. For 3.5 years, I have been attached to my phone for a long time, and only the past 6 months Did I? And so constantly trying to find ways to make it efficient. So for two reasons. One, so I have more emotional space for a creative side and also for an authentic connection rather than it being something that is exhausting that I'm just like, okay, I have to do another friggin' post. It's like, oh, okay, what am I doing today? Easy. And I have that freshness and I can be present rather than like, oh shit, I'm on day 6. Let me go. So there's that aspect of it that it enhances my ability to perform better and to be fresh. But also, those 6 days a week, I need 2 days off to fully unplug. Yeah. Fully unplug. So I have recently been mentoring someone to start it off with Saturday where they're posting and then now they're doing Friday and Saturday. And it's so we just meet and we talk and I share my experiences and it's been wonderful and helpful and I just love him to bits and bytes. So to me, I think that's non-negotiable and I'm developing some very casual networking, but mindful marketing. And I think that talking about mental health and accessibility, it's like you can be consistent and you can have quality posts, but don't drag it out so that you're always on because these are some of the things that it can do. Yeah. In that way. It's that answer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned that, so Friday, Saturday, your more engagement days. Do you want to move this?
Oh, no.
Okay, let's make sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Friday, Saturday, your higher engagement days.
Yes.
So
Mondays.
And Mondays?
Yeah. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday dips, and then we go back up.
Okay. So is there a time of day specifically you aim for where you notice the most engagement, or you just strategically post at a certain time, like maybe before lunch and before dinner?
Before lunch, we definitely get more engagement. Sometimes if we post too early in the morning, that doesn't work. But we still get engagement at nighttime posts too. Okay. So it really fluctuates. And day to day, it fluctuates. It's like weekends, it's great in the morning. Yeah. Because people are having their slow wake ups, they're doing their scroll. We're there. It's better in the morning. Same on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesdays and Thursdays, I've played with like morning, I've played with afternoon, I've played with like it just fluctuates. So it's like, okay, we'll be here for 24 hours. Yeah. Maybe it'll get to our crew. And it's interesting to notice the engagement as a whole have you noticed that?
It's declined. I think Instagram as a whole, I think it's like 0.9% decline across the platform.
Which is, majority of that is bots, as I've heard. Have you also heard this? Like there's actual authentic engagements rather than accounts that have been created, which I totally believe, as they're cutting down on that a little bit more. And I'm looking for numbers, but I'm also looking for the quality. It's like I can still see that we have, close to 10,000 views, even though I'm maybe not getting
the same engagement,
the same double tap. So it's, but I also, when I'm doing my call to actions, I don't want it to be the same standard thing. So finding creative ways to keep people there, whether it's, swiping, having photos that you're swiping or having that caption that's alluring enough in the beginning that they're reading more. And maybe they don't comment, but, maybe there's enough valid or enjoyable information in that caption that they want to stay connected. And it's been interesting to watch that, but it hasn't affected the people coming into the door from those. Yeah. I
wanted to ask you about your captions as well.
Yeah.
I just noticed for the most part, all of them, they're quite significant in length, like they're long. So you said at one point you were just kind of writing whatever captions, eventually there became a strategy behind it. So what led to you posting more longer form captions than just like a quick one-liner?
Yeah. And we played with quick one-liners for a little bit, but there's information that's there. I think there's a couple edges to that. I like to lead with a line that's either humorous or a question or something that hopefully is piques enough of an interest that they want to read more. So it's like leading with something like that so that hopefully they do click read more. And part of that is strategic. It's how long will they stay on this post? But some of our so the majority of our followers on Instagram are women. It's about 80%.
Wow.
And majority of them are in that 18 to 31 range, 34 range. So the other thing about our restaurant is that we are a haven for those with restrictions. We're also supported by an amazing and diverse community of people. There's the people who come out of need for health and lifestyle changes who are older than middle-aged. They're maybe approaching senior, not quite. So there's those people, or they're being dragged in by their 20-year-old yogi daughter and they're like visually uncomfortable. But, it's so that's where the educational side and approach comes from. It's like out of necessity, all you've been shown is meat and potatoes, this, that. Where do you go from here? Let us support you in that regard. So I like including an educational component of it for those people, but there are also people in that age range, in our majority range, where they want to know too, because they are learning how to use food as fuel in a different way. So it's like, okay, well, here's information about this ingredient or this health. So there's the people who are part of the health and wellness community. So it's like, well, let's learn together. This is something that is relevant. And then part of it is those people with eating restrictions, where it's like, I could just say this is, here's this food product. And then I'll get a million questions, which is great to have comments, but it's also time consuming to be able to say, yes, you can have this as a gluten-free option. Yes, you can have this as a vegan option. It's like, here's information, do what you want with it. If you're reading more, here you go. In that way. Does that answer?
Yeah. And you said how answering all those comments is time consuming.
Yeah.
But how important is that aspect of community management and community engagement from the restaurant's perspective? Like, how important is it to be replying to all those comments to build that connection within people on an individual basis?
That's a really great question. DMs take the most of my time. And then Facebook and Instagram comments, sometimes they're responding to the call to action. So they're stating, if it's a question that's like, what sort of features would you like to see coming down the pipeline? It's like, yes, that's a great idea. Let's reply to some of these. There's always an acknowledgement or a heart for every single comment that's there. But we don't comment back to every single comment.
Is that just there's too many and it's just a volume
Sometimes.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes. I think that's definitely something that could we could do more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Facebook there as well. And I was curious how much of what's the percentage breakdown between where you spend your time on Facebook and Instagram? Because I think
way less on Facebook.
Really, eh? I was going to ask about Facebook, because what Facebook has in terms of that must be important for a restaurant that Instagram doesn't, is they can leave a review of the restaurant on Facebook, whereas Instagram they can't. So what is kind of your Facebook strategy then right now?
Facebook strategy, I love the Facebook dashboard. It just makes it so much easier with all the updates they've been doing for it. Notifications, reviews, absolutely acknowledging. Same with, and it's a different, like the analytics of our Facebook population is slightly different in that regard. And we can also have events. So as we have more events on there, then we're scrolling it over to Facebook because we want to have that traction. I have them linked together so that they're posting unanimously on both. They get less reach on Facebook for us, but notifications and reviews are definitely something that in messages are sort of our prioritized ways to focus on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about other social media, like Twitter, YouTube?
The owner does Twitter. It's
Okay.
the poli-sci background in him,
Yeah.
you know? Twitter, it's not necessarily, we don't invest a lot of time in it. I'd say it's a smaller percentage of our population, our clientele.
Yeah. And were you ever on Snapchat at all?
No.
No. Is TikTok in the plans?
I haven't downloaded it. I've been resistant.
Yeah.
And that's on a personal level, like my own resistance to more apps on my phone. It's like constantly balancing the mental health side of things. But I'm sure that there'll be I'll play around with it.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, I saw that you were playing around with it.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
I like it. So it's a good one.
I feel like it would be a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah.
But I was curious about back to Facebook and Instagram. Have you ever done any of the paid advertising on there with like Facebook ads and Instagram
We haven't.
ads? Really?
Yeah, we haven't. So our core products or services, which is what we would lump into that category of something to advertise on Facebook. This goes back to talking about gaps. So I can promote juice cleanses, but for a while we kept realizing some gaps in our side of execution.
Okay.
So now we're in a space after some changes and processes where it's like, okay, great. Yes, I'm not hearing any mishaps anymore. Like, I'm not going to promote something if we're not able to follow through with it. Like, that's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Get your shit together, you know?
Yeah.
And then they'll promote it.
Okay.
So now we're in a space that if we were to, or like we're doing a gift card promote, like next week's going to be a big week. So holiday pre-orders for different things or a gift card promotion where where we're doing $100, you get 20 PK dollars. Those are things that we would consider for advertising. I have heard no negative things about it, and that it's affordable and it has the reach. It works. It's worked for me on a consumer side of things.
Yeah.
So we're open to it. And we are now more in a space where it's the same thing with catering. It's like we just last week finally revised our catering menu and have a structure in place where before it was like, no, yeah, okay, yes, we can do it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to launch. You can post whatever the hell you want. But the customer service side and execution side of thing, it's like, it'd be different if it were just me and my company and here's what I have.
Yeah.
And I'll follow up about it in a different way. But if I'm posting about one thing that affects 30 people easily in order for that product to get. So I need to make sure that we have that together. So yeah, I think that'll be a New Year integration. Yeah.
What about influencer marketing? I know you work with Elise from time to time, and she has about 22,000 followers.
Yeah, and I work with Katie Hessian.
Okay. Both past guests on the podcast.
Yes, yeah. I love Katie. And Amy613, Amy Carlson, she'll come in sometimes. We've had lots of influencers, or Dara from the Sweat Spot, other businesses. We have a lot of realtors that are using us as a selling point right now for the neighborhoods of the homes that they're selling. Like, it's crazy. All of a sudden it was like all realtors are Talk to me if you're a realtor. And influencers are amazing beacons of exposure. And they're like little lighthouses in that regard. And giveaways, I would say, are something that consistently we would do with an influencer. Okay. What works with Katie is that she's our meal share representative or community leader. So that's also in alignment with the products and that we're selling that support an organization that is amazing, doing amazing work in our nation and internationally. So in terms of on the regular, I don't think we lean on them that much.
Okay.
It's more strategized or if there's a launch of something.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And what about email? Do you run the email side for Purigen, like the email marketing side, like the MailChimp and everything?
Yeah.
Email is something that I'm becoming more interested in because it's a platform that you own.
Yes.
So like if the reach goes down on Instagram, your email reach isn't going
I still have
down.
these 5,000 people.
Right, exactly. So what is the email strategy?
I know live in Ottawa.
So what is kind of like your email strategy then when it comes to... No, it's okay. When it comes to like marketing, is it more so like that educational type content you were talking about earlier, or is it like when you do a launch, that's when the emails goes out? What does it kind of look like for you?
So I think about categories.
Okay.
And key, you could call them hashtags. So we have a health component, hashtag pure health, hashtag pure lifestyle, hashtag pure taste, and hashtag pure community. So those I try to convey in plotting out the month at a glance, and any events or any other things that are in that month so that there is cohesiveness. And part of the video creation for these IGTV videos is also so that there's content that I can recycle for the pure taste side of things. So our newsletter, I don't know about you, I don't know how many emails you unsubscribe from your inbox on a weekly basis. If there isn't something valuable, I'm not going to go into it. I'm bombarded in my inbox. I'm overwhelmed by emails. So if it's just selling a product, that I'm not interested in it. But if they are offering some sort of education that is applicable to me, like there's a beautiful flower shop in Westboro and there's like succulent care tips. And I was like, yes, I'm a crazy plant lady. This is great. Tell me everything. Like those sprout and later gram, it's like, okay, I like that. I have to go run to a meeting right now, but I'm going to save this and I'm going to read this later on. So yes, there's some communications and some new changes that we want to relay in the email marketing, but then we use those 4 categories to ensure that we have an article or recipe that corresponds to those. And because our products are either our regular menu, online services, or the catering of the juice cleanses, if they've already had it once, yes, we can remind them that it's still there, but we'd rather just cultivate a community. Like we have people who come in all the time because we are a haven because they can't eat gluten or because they're trying to eat more plant-based. So we're all in this together. We have that regularity if you work or live in the neighborhoods where our locations are. But let's give you also a resource that we're really proud of and that we're excited about and that we're learning about. Let's share it with you. And hopefully we're giving something of value back because they're bringing us value with their business. Yeah. Okay. So thinking of it more of a relationship rather than here's what we got. Yeah. Thank you.
No, I think that I like that. I think that's the way to go about it, right? Like you have to provide them some form of value to get them to open it.
Yeah. So yes, it costs money to create that, and it's hard to quantify the return. But it's also non-negotiable, I think, in delivering any webinar or any course that I've taken. It's you give good quality so that there's a taste of the relationship or a taste of what this business does, so that then they can decide, yes, you get to have my money.
And how do you kind of quantify that return? That's a question I feel like people ask about social media and email. Like, how do you quantify all the time and output you're putting there? How do you show that it's bringing value back?
So for example, catering. I haven't posted about it a lot. I've just started posting, and we're able to see like, oh, holy shit, we're really busy for the month of December. Juice cleanses, I won't post, and then all of a sudden we'll get a bunch of new orders or more hits to the website in that way. So we can watch the analytics of the increase of, which gives me insights of, okay, am I over communicating this? They're sick of it. I'll bring that back in a little bit. Like what do you guys want to know? What's great about MailChimp is you can see everything, and it's great. And people are also replying, or they're sharing it. If someone shares our website and they're not one of our employees, I'm like, okay, cool. This is great. Thank you. So using the analytics functions of each sort of facet to see, paying attention to what they're most interested in, and then curating content that is in alignment to what we're seeing is the most important in that regard.
Okay. And what about your personal social media? Is there a plan to try and like blow that up? And
I've been so quiet on mine. I use stories, my feed, I post inconsistently. But when I do, it's a very great response from the posts, which is nice to see. It's still working. And so I have been just quietly, since the summer, been building some different programming that I'll be launching as a side hustle.
Okay, that's
probably awesome. By the time this podcast launches. And so that's also, and that's where it will sort of have its rebirth in a different way. I use my stories frequently. And it's often either stories of my cat or events that I'm attending, or to promote my workshops that or events that other friends are doing too. The way that I see my personal account is, I keep coming back to this mental health side of things, is we curate. It's, yes, I'm selling a product, but how can I also be real while doing it? So if I share a video of me talking about something, I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm not silly, or that I don't swear, that I don't have mess ups, or that there aren't like redos and retakes. So I also want to use it as a platform that shows authentic accessibility, because I think I have so many insanely talented friends and associates that if they're anything like me, if you have this belief or this story that you don't know enough about it, then it hinders you, or that you're not good enough, or you're not meant to do video, or you're not supposed to do these things, then you're hindered from doing it. So I want to create content that is authentically relatable, and so that hopefully maybe my network and my community will feel inspired to keep promoting what they do in an authentic way. Okay. And that's sort of a reaction to me being like, I don't want to see the same thing over and over again. Like friends who will promote with, a 12 story of one video. It's like, you're going to lose people after the third one. So let's show all sorts of different ways that we can communicate information that's accessible and not scary.
And then kind of thinking on the mental health side, or in general, do you think social media is bad for us?
Yes and no.
Okay. Why yes and why no?
No, in the way that if it weren't created, we'd find something else.
Yeah, okay.
And there's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be external events or occurrences or media or promotions that will invoke some sort of reaction, positive or negative. So here it is, it's created. I think the why it impacts mental health is the way that it does give those serotonin bursts,
Yeah.
and it becomes addictive. It's positive in the way that this does connect me with people who I don't get to see all the time. And I'm actually so grateful to have an essence of connection with them. But if that's all that I'm doing, it can draw away from your productivity, or it can, for some people, thankfully, I've never felt this way. There's this comparison effect, so it can create this idea of being less than or not worthy or shame or guilt in a society where we have enough of that already. So it can perpetuate that cycle. And then there's the actual physiological effect of being on your phone and not being present and not being mindful. And that is really being shown in mental health and with psychology and medicinal circles in that way too. I see it, and there's this other side of things where, like, I see with expectations. So there's an instantaneous gratification from social media. And if you don't like something, you can go to the next something. So I think it can hinder our mental resiliency in some ways, of if we get used to this expectation that we can always just have what we want at our fingertips, when we actually, outside from our screens, need to do the work and to show up. I'm concerned for the younger generation in the way, like, I'm thinking about my niece, where it's like, no, this is a life skill. This is something that you learn, and this maybe doesn't show you that, but you need to put the phone down and do the work, and it's not as easy as swiping right or left. But then you can also watch videos on tips, to have it. So it's really a double-edged sword. Yeah. No. What are your thoughts on that? I'm actually curious.
I think it's all in how you use it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Exactly.
I think, like, I was on someone else's podcast and we were talking about it, and he kept coming out from like a negativity angle, but I was like, it's negative if you go on there looking for negativity and trying to be negative.
Yes.
If you all go on there trying to be positive and do good and watch good content, then it's a completely different experience.
Totally.
I think, like, for example, like what I do sometimes, not necessarily as a growth tactic, but I'll just jump on and I'll just message random people and I'll comment on like one thing on their grid that I liked. One, it gets them to kind of like, who the hell is this? And they check out my profile.
Yeah.
But it's also like when I message people, probably 1 in 10 might go to my account after. But for the other 9, I'm just like putting positivity out there.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I'm in a better mood after because I just spent the time being positive.
It's a gratitude practice.
Yeah. So I think it's all in how you use it. I do think there is something to be said for the amount of time being spent on it and productivity. I've tried putting my phone, whenever I have my to-do list and I know I need to get this done, I only check my phone once I cross something off that to-do list. So my phone is in another room, and then I go check it once I cross something off.
Amazing.
So I think there is, again, I think like you said, it's a double-edged sword. I think some of it comes down to how you use it.
Yeah.
And then I think the other aspect is you just need to be disciplined enough to know when to put it down.
And consciously find what works for you so that you do it. Like sometimes I let my phone battery get really low so that I take a break from it. Or if I catch myself in the circuit and it's part of my job, I like being relevant and watching what's there, but it can also become this muscle memory thing. So, and then it's like, what am I looking for? Okay, go do it.
Yeah.
So then I'll put on a podcast and then be like, okay, I'm learning. And then I'm happy all of a sudden and I have that phone break.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's it And that's where, like, on the personal level, like, use it as inspiration. Give positive information, and be real. Be real. Don't fully curate everything in a way that it paints this picture that you are a god or a goddess. You are a god or a goddess with your entirety as your whole, with your flaws, with your these things. And that allows, that invites other people to feel comfortable doing the same. So there's this beautiful Marianne Williamson quote that sort of talks about, I can't remember, it's a long one.
Yeah.
But it's like, your greatest fear is not how bad you are, but how powerful you are. So, and that is, I think, learning to accept all parts of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now,
it's the yogi coming in me.
Before we wrap up, I have 5 or 6 questions here that I ask everybody.
Okay.
It's kind of like a rapid fire. It's just whatever you can think of. We'll fly through these questions. So the first one being, you're going to dinner.
Yeah.
You can take anybody. You can take 3 people, dead or alive. Who do you take to dinner?
Oh, shit. This is great for my brain. Who would I take to dinner, dead or alive? My father, he is dead. And when I was 9, and that would just be amazing, like, as an adult. Yeah. I feel like I'd want to go to dinner with Brene Brown, because she just speaks so much to my own personal work right now. And I just find her amazing. And then, who would the third person be? This is tough. This is the hardest part of my day, Jacob. I would say some sort of comedic, maybe Amy Schumer.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's get some comedy in there.
Yeah. All right. I like it. For the next question, what is some of the best advice you've ever been given?
My mind went to one of the things in my core yoga training. And I was talking about this recently, because I'll do workshops with teacher training groups. And when I get overwhelmed, and because I feel dedicated to a life of connection and service, sometimes if anxieties come up, or just a check-in with myself, the teacher said, remember that it's not about you, and that you are a vessel for these teachings. Yeah. And it just sort of gives that macro, micro perspective of, where is my mind? It's not about me. I live a life of extreme privilege, and this is what I'm here for. So it just sort of takes the edge off.
Yeah.
I've had so many good teachers and advice givers in my life.
Yeah.
I think we'll go with that. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm just going to be thinking, I'm like, but what about that person said?
What is one thing about you people wouldn't expect?
I love true crime.
Okay. Yeah.
I think because I promote all of these different things, and because it's so, like, whenever I train Muay Thai, if I like miss a pad, I'm not into sparring. I love it for the physical activity of it. If I miss the pads and hit someone, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't fathom hurting another individual consciously. And I actually can't. That actually really fascinates me, because I'm like, how the fuck I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And it gives me perspective on mental health. Yeah. So it almost like gives me feel of like, oh God, we need work. Mm-hmm. We need work in this world.
Yeah.
So
what is one thing that's so important everybody needs to know?
Your breath is your birthright. It is with you always. It costs nothing, and it is the most powerful tool for your mental health and physical body.
I like that. The last question. I kind of like to flip the script a little bit. So
Okay.
you're asking the question, not to me, but so just pretend you have a crystal ball. You can
Okay.
ask this crystal ball any question, and it'll give you the answer. What is one question you would ask that you want to know the answer to?
Crystal ball. Can I get political? Will President Trump be impeached? Will he leave the office? I think the crystal ball question would be when will mental health be subsidized by the Canadian government?
Okay.
Tell me. Tell me, crystal ball.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to thank you for
Thank
taking the time to come on the
you.
podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. I want to give you the floor. Where can the people find you? Where can they find Pure Kitchen? Plug anything and everything that you got right now.
Pure Kitchen on Instagram is at Pure Kitchen Ottawa, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter by heading to our website, purekitchenottawa.com, and a prompt will pop up, or you can see past recipes, inspiration on the blog section of our website. And you can follow me at Tara Amber Porter. And there's some exciting new developments unraveling over the next 2 months that I'm really excited to share in the world of culinary tourism and mindful marketing. So
Awesome.
check me out there.
Awesome. I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Whether you've listened the entire way through, you've only listened to bits and pieces, I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out. Everyone do me a favor, go and follow Tara, go and follow Pure Kitchen. I'll make sure everything is linked in the show notes down below. And if you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and at the Jacob Kelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. And if you'd like to find the podcast, you can find us on Instagram at My Social Life Podcast, or by finding us on YouTube by searching up My Social Life. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. We'll talk soon.